Hello everyone and welcome back to Inside ArtScroll, where the books you read and the people who write them come to life. Today I am privileged to be joined by Roy and Leah Neuberger, the protagonist of the brand new ArtScroll book From Sinai to Yerushalayim. Thank you to the Neubergers for being here. What a treat it is.
Rabbi Hissiger, this is a tremendous simcha for us to be here.
Thank you. I know it's a dream come true for you.
It's a dream come true.
That your life story has been put into writing and is being published by ArtScroll.
Amazing.
I know you're thrilled about it. We've spoken so many times about this book. And I'm excited that other people are going to be able to get to experience your story.
Yeah.
Which, before we even get started, the story was put into writing by the one and only Rabbi Nachman Seltzer, who's just magnificent. His work is magnificent. I know you think so as well. As I've been going through the book, I can't get over the way he's able to richly capture stories. And one thing I will tell the viewers out there, if they pick up this book, they will not be able to put it down. It's a great story.
It's a beautiful book.
A beautiful book. It's entertaining and inspiring at the same time. What could you say about Rabbi Nachman's talent?
So I had a thought, Rabbi Hissiger, and maybe it's a little wild, but I don't know, I have wild thoughts sometimes. And when I daven, I like to think about the words I'm saying, which I think is a good thing. I think it's called kavana. Anyway, I try. And it's not always so easy. There's one bracha in Shemona Esrei that over many years I don't say bothers me, but I wanted to understand it. It's the bracha to ka b'shofar gadol l'chiruseinu v'sanes l'kabetz a nes, that Hashem is going to send a nes, a sign, before the Gula Shalema that will bring all the Jews together back home, spiritually, physically, in whatever way. Well, I thought to myself, what is this? I want to know, what is this nes? I want to know what kind of sign is Hashem going to put into the world that's going to just, all of a sudden the Jews will know, this is it, this is it. And as we were involved in this book and got to know Rabbi Nachman Seltzer, Hatzadik, an amazing, amazing person, I'm davening one day and I'm saying this bracha, and all of a sudden I look at this word nes, and I have, you'll tell me if it's a crazy thought or not, but Roshei Tevos Nes Nachman Seltzer.
There you go.
Nachman Seltzer. And what does that mean? It's not really a crazy thought, because the kind of books that Rabbi Seltzer writes reach out to Jews across the world, and Hashem is going to send a real sign, and it's going to be visible to Jews across the world, and it's going to be an instrument to bring us back spiritually, physically, in every way.
I do think you bring up a wonderful point.
It's amazing.
The books that Rabbi Nachman has written, they bring people closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom.
They do.
They bring people closer to each other. And so that's an interesting simon.
Yeah, I think so.
And we'll go with that. Now, this book, for those who have not read it yet, they want to know what it is. They know that it's about your life story. But in a nutshell, how would you describe, either of you describe what that life story is? It's a story of return. What is it?
Who should talk?
I'll say a few words.
Say.
It's definitely a story of return.
Aye.
In our case, it wasn't returning to what we'd grown up with, because we grew up with no Yiddishkeit at all. We had no idea what it really means to be a Jew. And we felt that emptiness. Everyone, I think, could learn a lot from this, and that is that you could have every material thing, you could have a great secular education, you could have wonderful family, and that emptiness inside that I felt growing up. How do I know what's right? How do I know what's wrong? I want to be a good person. I want to live for more than just myself, just material things. You get one thing and then you want the next thing and you're never satisfied. And then we met at a very young age, and my husband was really miserable with this thought that he couldn't bear to have such a life. And together we searched for so many years to find the truth. And everyone who is from should know We explored everything, every lifestyle, every religion. We were major students. We studied and studied and studied. And there is nothing out there except Torah. Torah is it. It's the truth, and it's beautiful. And just a thought of how, I think when you see sometimes people going away from it who grew up from, I think that the best way to reach such people is love and warmth and no pressure. No pressure to come back.
Now, what I think, just to interject for a second, I think what's unique about your story of when we say return, obviously we mean return to your roots.
Yeah, of course.
You return to Yiddishkeit and to Yiddishkeit. What's unique about your story, I think, is that many people, many Chayzrei B'tshuva, people who grew up not from and later became from, did so, and then met their life partner later on. Both of you met each other in high school, correct?
We did.
Yeah.
You were friends in high school, and you went on this journey together. Talk about that and how that worked. It's I'm sure people wonder what happens if one person is ahead of the other, one person is thinking differently than the other. Were you always on the same page in this journey?
It's an amazing story of how Hashem reaches out to us even when we don't know He exists. I mean, I want to emphasize that we grew up in this very affluent culture. We had wonderful parents, role models in many ways, in derech eretz role models. We had a comfortable lifestyle. We had what is considered the American dream. We had, quote unquote, everything. I mean, somehow, my mother's maiden name was Salant. We didn't know what Salant meant when we were growing up, but my mother was a Salanter. She was a Musardika personality. And there's something that I inherited from her which made it impossible to survive mentally, spiritually, even physically in that environment where there was no Hashem. I couldn't do it. And so I started searching from a very young age. When my wife and I met in high school, Hashem was just somehow bringing together two halves of a whole. And we are very different in personality. I mean, I'm a very intense, a little nutty person.
No, just intense.
Just intense. I mean, but my wife keeps me normal. I mean, it's Ezer Kenegdo. That's the way it's supposed to be, right? And somehow this combined, and I was the one who was more searching, like even frantically searching for a spiritual truth so I could breathe. Mm-hmm. I mean, I felt like a spiritual slave, and my wife kept me within the bounds of normalcy. Thank God.
What was your reaction when your husband starts embarking on this undertaking of this self-discovery, and he has all these questions and concerns and this intensity, and you're sitting there, you think you're getting off to this pleasant secular life without any limitations?
No, but I really felt deeply that emptiness, that something's missing in my life. So my husband, when we met, made me more intensely aware of it, and we searched together, and the miracle is we always felt the same way every step of the way.
Wow.
We both were studying and studying, looking for the truth. We the whole process, miraculously, we did together. We always are on the same page. It's really such a bracha from Hashem.
And can I know her today? Just jumping ahead, and we're going to go back. But today you have a beautiful family, children, and Enoch, right? Five children.
Yeah.
One son and 4 daughters.
That's right.
All b'nei b'nai Torah.
Yeah.
So this is a story that the end people know before they pick up the book. They know There's no secrets at the end.
No secrets.
You
There are
created and built a beautiful
Rabbanim
mishpacha
and Torah teachers and Torah
seeing tremendous
learners.
nachas. Getting there is what this book is about. That journey.
Is it okay if I relate a specific incident
Yeah, of course.
that I think is extremely relevant to the publication of this book? It's amazing. The fact is that when you look back in your life, you see Hashem is there every step of the way, every atom, every second is Hashem. You see how it all comes together. It is so remarkable. And actually, in response to your previous question, I just want to say that, I think of a husband and wife. Rebbetzin Youngreis always said it's not, husband and wife looking in each other's eyes, but if they're looking together in the same direction.
Rabbi Nachman, your machatenis da.
She became our, she was our Torah teacher, and then she became our machatenis. It's another amazing story. It's all in the book. That's how we met Rabbi Seltzer, by the way. When he did the ArtScroll book on Rebbetzin Youngreis, he interviewed us, and that's how we first got to know each other. But the biggest turnaround in our life, and our life, we had many difficult moments. There was a moment 2.5 years after we were married. We were students at the University of Michigan. I was 23 years old. We had a marriage without Hashem, and I'm going to say straight out, a marriage without Hashem, it can't work. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not a theory. We found out. And it was, I'm going to say very explicitly, blowing up, falling apart. Our whole life was blowing up. We didn't know how to fix it. I especially didn't know how to fix it because without Hashem, you can't fix it. And it's like a fire and Hashem, could put out the fire, but if he's not there, you don't bring him into the house. It doesn't work. On January 10th, 1966, at 2 a.m., I woke up. We had been married about 2.5 years. And I knew everything was collapsing, blowing up. It was all over. And without exaggeration, I'm not exaggerating, I feel as if, for me, I was on Mem Tesh Shari Tuma, the 49th level of, it was at the bottom, was all over. I literally felt another minute, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life in a mental institution. I'm not exaggerating. Either something had to give or that was gonna be what happened. But something gave. And Hashem rescued us. It was the most dramatic moment of my life, of our life. I had a thought in the middle of the night, maybe there is a God in the world. And somehow I never entertained this thought before in my life. And all of a sudden, I saw there's a way out. Something more powerful than I am that can save us.
Was there something that triggered that thought? Was it
Yes.
totally...
What triggered that thought was total despair. It's like I really want to compare it to Mitzrayim being on Mem Tesh Shari Tuma. When you're at the bottom, sometimes you bounce. And that's what happened with Am Yisroel in Mitzrayim. And that's what happened on January 10th, 1966. I just want to make an amazing point, and this is the relevance to the book. Later on, I found out there's such a thing as Jewish months. I found out the Jewish calendar. And I found out what day that was when that happened. It was the 18th of the month of Teves in 1966. Every year since then, without exaggeration, around that time, I feel as if, you'll excuse me for saying, but this is what I feel like. A Malach came to us then and saved us. And like the Malach came back year after year. We had incredible miracles that happened. We had a car crash. Our car was totaled at 60 miles an hour on a major highway, and we walked out without a scratch. That was 14th of Teves. It was, things happened that were not normal in this period of time. Rabbi Hissinger, I want you to know, 57 years to the day after January 10th, 1966, on the 18th of Teves of 5783 this year, this book went on the press at ArtScroll.
Wow.
The Malach came back this year, and it's not just that. 57 years occurred to me is 3 times 19. Every 19 years, this calendrical cycle is that the English and Hebrew dates coincide. This is the 3rd time since 1966 that the English and Hebrew dates coincide. That is the day when this book went on the press at ArtScroll, and I can't help but think that this is just so clearly, obviously, part of the same miracle that's playing out before our eyes.
Did you have an epiphany like your husband also that day when it just, whether it came from despair or from inspiration?
I felt it also. We really, it's like we're one heart. And I felt what he was going through, and I felt that, wow, wow. And I felt hope also from it. Everything that one of us experienced, we both experienced somehow. That's how we are. And I must stress what a miracle it is that we started to believe in God. Growing up, we had just about all Jewish friends. No one believed in God. We were in totally secular circles. We never met anyone in our life, not only that weren't Shomer Shabbos, we never heard of Shabbos, we never heard of yeshiva, but we never had met anyone who even believed in God. And so we were like big intellectuals, honor students, and we were like, well, that's like a silly idea. So the miracle that we started to believe in God is amazing, considering that our background.
But there's believing in God, and then there's a different level of becoming a Torah observant Jew. The people,
it's a long story.
Right? There's a big gap between the two.
So after January 10th, 1966, it still took us 8 years. I mean, that's when I got into all kinds of Avodah Zarah, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Avodah Zarah. And then at the end of 8 years, we found that this is also garnished, but garnished. It's empty, there's nothing there. And at that exact moment, we met Rebbetzin Young Rice. At that exact moment, when we were like, once again, Mem Tashari Tum, at the bottom, there was nothing there. And that is when we met Rebbetzin Young Rice in Neuberger, New York. And we started learning Torah, and we realized we were everywhere. We have done everything. We've experienced the Gashmias of this world. We've eaten whatever.
Don't mention it.
Don't mention it. I'm not going to say it. I retract. I don't retract, but I'm not going to say it. Anyway. But there's nothing there. There is nothing there. And when we encountered Torah, and Rebbetzin Young Rice started teaching us Torah, we realized this is what we've been searching for our entire lives. I want to tell you, Rabbi Hissiger, we went to a school where we met as a school filled with Jews from our background, affluent, brilliant, intellectual, secular, anti-Torah Jews. Today we try to keep in touch with them.
Right.
We want to. They won't talk to us.
We're the black sheep.
We are the black sheep. They will literally if we go to a class reunion, they don't want to see us. They don't want to see us.
They just say a curt hello. But may I just say that the reason that we didn't go ahead and start to study Judaism and Torah when we started believing in God is that our only experience of Judaism had been our friends' bar mitzvahs, Reform or conservative, and it was really just a party, give a nice check or presents, delicious roast beef, finished, never went back to shul again. So we said, Judaism, it's materialism. We want more than that. We want a real spiritual meaning and purpose in life.
I would put it, could I put it a different way?
Yeah, sure.
I have a little different take on that, reflecting my different personality from my wife. Baruch Hashem, the two halves work out well. You calm me down. But the reason I was always wanted to separate myself from Torah was that every Yid has a Pintele Yid, every Jew has learned Torah in the womb from the Malach. Inside, it's true. There's a Hashem. And that's why you want to distance yourself from it, because in your neshama that once I admit Hashem is real, I have to change my life. I'm not the boss anymore. Hashem is the boss. And I didn't want that. I want to be the boss. I mean, nobody's going to tell me what to do on Saturday, or what kind of meat to eat, or food to eat, but as soon as I realized that everything else is bankrupt, if there's no other way of life that's real, then all of a sudden you want Hashem to run your life, and the whole thing goes upside down. And then,
so what do you think it is, while you saw it with such clarity, and let's say you're talking about your peers back from your college days, so many people have assimilated. You know, we talk about a spiritual holocaust.
100%.
And you two know it as well as anyone, because you speak all over the world to from audiences, to different types of audiences.
And college audiences.
College audiences.
Kiruv organizations.
Right, for Kiruv. And the assimilation on college campuses is rampant,
Sure.
as you know. Why do you think that these Pentele Yidden are not seeing the light? What's holding them back? Is it that they don't want to subjugate themselves to
there is
such a
something
life?
called assimilation. The paradigm is Mitzrayim. When a Jew is in Gullus, the culture is so powerful, as it was in Mitzrayim. We know that Chazal tell us that most of the Yidden didn't leave with Moshe Rabbeinu. There's just a small minority left with Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Moshe Rabbeinu, they didn't leave Mitzrayim? Because the culture of Gullus is so strong. And the same thing is true today. The culture of Edom, the world we're living in, the Western culture, is so strong. We grew up, I know what it's like. You think it's real. All the Gashmias, this is it. This is real. This is reality. And these ancient Jewish rules they have no relevance to anything. And so people want to live with this false reality, and it is so difficult to get out of it, to break out of the culture of Gullus.
Did you personally pay a price, family-wise, financially, otherwise, in that transition, losing friends, losing relatives?
Very interesting. When we left Cornwall, New York in 1974 to move to Rebbetzin, Rabbi Youngreis's community, the non-Jews in our community said, "We're so proud of you. It's so beautiful. You are following your ideals. It's a wonderful thing." And the Jews in the community said, "Maybe you should consult a psychiatrist." That's what they told us. Did we pay a price? We were nervous at times, but we did not pay any price. Over the years, there has been nothing but bracha. Our parents, who grew up in this totally assimilated world, they didn't know anything about Yiddishkeit either. They were both born in America. My wife's, 3 or 4 of our parents were born in America. And you would think we would have a spiritual, divorce from our parents. The opposite was true. We went out of our way to be close to them. It took a little while. They thought we were crazy at first, literally. And there's a passage in the book written by my brother, which is incredible, how he thought I went off my rocker when we changed our lifestyle.
He was angry.
It's in the book. He's angry. He was angry at us. But then our parents saw our family, our children. The children were so respectful to them. The children were so normal. And we went out of our way to be close to our parents. And I would go out, it talks about it in the book, I would go to dinner with my parents at kosher restaurants. And sometimes they would see their own friends there. Wow. And over the years, we became closer and closer to our parents, to the extent that it's miraculous what happened. So there were a few, I'm even going to say dangerous moments over the years. It hasn't been easy. but Hashem held our hand the whole time and sent wonderful shlichim. I'm going to mention Rebbe Chanan Zon, the head of the Chevra Kadisha of Queens. Because of Rabbi Zon, all our parents had kvora. They were all buried according to Jewish law. This was an open miracle. Miracle. Oh, and over the years, all these things worked out. I think because we tried to be very normal and responsible in our relationship with our parents and our friends and so on, and it worked out.
We were speaking about the spiritual Holocaust among assimilated Jews. Unfortunately, even within the From community, as the community grows, and as the world becomes more diverse and tempting, whatever we want to call, whatever we're going to attribute it to, but there's a segment of our youth,
really
alluring, right? And there are youngsters who are growing up who have trouble connecting to Yiddishkeit. The exact opposite of you. You grew up irreligious and later ultimately were zeichet to find the truth. And in our From community, there's a separate phenomenon. We call it kids at risk, kids in pain, whatever we call it. Well, I would love to hear your perspective on that based on your fascinating life story.
So I just want to point out, in answer to the question, that Rabbi Yaakov Bender, I think, has a marvelous way of reaching such people, because in his school he has not only the straight learning, but he has a vocational program. And I think that if our community, the From community, could be more open about not pressuring people, you have to be a full-time learner and go to Kollel, because a person can be a wonderful Jew, and so he's learning in the morning before work, he can be working. You know, so many people say, no, I don't want a working boy. I mean, I think that we have to be more considerate and thoughtful about people's talents and inclinations, and that there's a place for everyone in the Torah way, and not to pressure, you know, you have to be a full-time learner and so on, because this is, I think, driving some of the people away.
Rabbi Yisroel, what's your thought on this?
I mentioned the allure of the culture of Gullus. It is incredibly intense. We grew.
Excuse me, especially with the technology today, that at the fingertips of
people. I mean, I'm going to tell you, when I see people davening and looking at their cell phones, I mean, I personally go a little meshugah. Not that I scream at them, but it hurts me so much. It seems to me it's not appropriate, to put it mildly. The allure of the technology of this culture is so incredibly powerful. I'm going to make the comparison once again to Mitzrayim. I think we can understand Mitzrayim when we look at this culture and how incredibly powerful it is.
If you were growing up today, both of you, high school students, as friends, and then got married, and you were faced with the same situation today, how different do you think your journey or challenge would have been?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard. It's hard to say. I do want to say, though, I think it's important that one thing I like to talk about, and I think it's such a yesod, is that when the culture becomes so powerful, culture of Gullus, that is when Hashem takes very strong action. At a certain point, it says, there's a Gemara that before Mashiach, if the Jews don't do tshuva, Hashem's going to send an enemy like Haman, who's going to make it clear what danger we're in. I do believe we're seeing today in the culture of Edom a collapse of that culture. I think in many ways we are seeing trans anti-Semitism and a whole chaotic environment, very frightening. I think the culture of Edom is in great danger, And I think that we can expect, just the way Mitzrayim collapsed and Am Yisroel, the ones who are aware of it, got out with Moshe Rabbeinu and went to Har Sinai. I think a similar phenomenon is taking place today in our world. I think if people would open their eyes and see what is happening in the surrounding culture, the dangers, the collapse, the anti-Semitism, the chaos, the sickness, the tsuras, the pain, they would realize this culture is not going to survive. The culture that's going to survive, lahavdol elef havdolas, is the culture of Torah. There's going to come a time when Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Dvar Hashem Yerushalayim, it's going to be a new world.
Do you find that this message, just like fire and brimstone message, right? That's kind of your
I must
your
admit,
approach.
yes.
It's a fire and brimstone. Do you find that resonates with the average American youth who's assimilated? Or would you say more of what your wife alluded to a little while ago, of more of the love and concern and that type of approach?
Rabbi Hisk, is a very amazing question you just asked. I think the answer is one has to be sensitive to whom one is speaking. Each person has a different, you have to gauge your audiences. Some audiences, you have to talk the way my wife did. Some audiences can take this powerful
Maybe that's why you're
message.
the perfect peer, right?
Be'ezus
I'd
Hashem.
like to answer this
And my
too.
wife tells me, listen, no, you can't say that to them. So, I mean, Ezer Kenegdo. And it's true. One has to use one's seichel. I just wrote about it this week. The fourth bracha in Shemona Esrei is das. We have to use our das, have to use our seichel to figure out how to speak, what to say when. To certain times it's appropriate to speak this way, certain times it's appropriate to speak that way, and it takes a lot of thought. I think the answer is, you have to tailor the message to the recipients.
Right. What do you want to
When
add?
we're speaking to, for example, assimilated college students, this message is not going to be the message. The message is our personal story. It's totally non-threatening. We're not preaching. We're telling our personal experience and giving a message of hope that it's never too late to make an important change in one's life. Here we were, 30 and 31 years old, married 11 years with 2 children. We totally changed our lives. It's never too late. And to tell a little story that's in the book, to illustrate this also, my father-in-law, my husband's father, who always had said, I don't believe in any religion. Religion's the cause of all the problems in the world, all the wars, all the problems. And then he read my husband's 3rd book called 2020 Vision, and he loved it. It's a novel that takes place in 2020, and it's a novel, and it's filled with inspiring Torah thoughts. So he read it, and he was 104 years old, almost 105. He read it with his own eyes, his own just reading glasses like anyone else. And my husband used to visit him every day, because at that point, till the age of 99, he used to walk to work every day. But then he had a problem with his legs, and he couldn't. He stayed home. My husband used to visit him every day for all the years that he was at home. He lived, thank God, to be 107 and a half, and my husband visited every day. So my husband would walk in, and there was his father. He's reading the book, 2020 Vision. He read it 4 times. He was so inspired and excited about it. And guess what? For the first time in his life, after reading that book, he put on tefillin at the age of 105. It is never too late for any person. And the way to reach a person, as you said, you're asking about a assimilated person, they're not going to be able to, this fire and brimstone message, they're going to go, what? Help, no. is the, as I said before, the love and the warmth, and the speaking from your heart, words from the heart enter the heart, and to tell your personal experiences, and then they identify and they feel it. We spoke once at University of Washington, and in Seattle. And a 20-year-old girl came up to me after our program, and she said, you know, she'd been thinking it's too late for her, but now she thinks she can do it. Just hearing our experiences, people identify, and Baruch Hashem, and then it's like contagious. The story about my father-in-law, 105, putting on tefillin. A college student heard that story at University of Michigan. He woke up the next morning, he said, am I going to wait till I'm 105 to put on tefillin? He called the rabbi, Rabbi Foley Eisenberger. He said, can you get me tefillin? And then he got his friends to put on tefillin. And this is it. You can't preach. You can't order people. You can't anything like that. To share the experiences, and it touches people.
Great message.
Dvarim min halev.
Yeah, and that's the bottom line. That's what talks to people. And you've seen it on the road. You see how people connect to your story.
Sure.
And this book is going to allow tens of thousands around the world to do the same.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
add that also, we're not afraid to talk about our own blemishes, all our mistakes, all our struggles, the times we fell and got up, the difficulties. We have no problem talking.
I love that you mentioned that, because the book allows the reader a peek into your vulnerability. You're vulnerable.
That's exactly
You
it.
talk about your humanness, the mistakes, like you said, the mistakes you made, and the obstacles along the journey. It wasn't a smooth journey.
People
But
appreciate that.
But that's what makes life colorful, and that's what makes your story so entertaining.
May I add one nakuda? Is
Sure.
it okay?
Sure.
I think, my personal opinion is, this is one reason why Mashiach ben David comes from David HaMelech. Because David HaMelech was not afraid to tell about all the pitfalls that happened to him, his own troubles, his own sorrows. He let it, Dvar min halev, he told it like it is. And that's why he's Mashiach, because everybody can identify with him. He's so real, and people appreciate real.
Well, on that note, we appreciate the realness that you've brought to this book, and I do think, like you just said, people are going to read the book. They're going to identify with so many components of your journey back to Yiddishkeit. Even people from birth, they're going to read it, and they're going to be able to identify with those struggles. And really, as they read it, they'll admire your strength, your courage, your resilience, and the fact that till this day you're still growing and still sharing that message of growth, like you said so beautifully, that it's never too late. There are so many universal messages in this book, and we're very excited that it finally hit the press.
So
as we end, any
May I say
final
one
message
more
from
I'd
each
like
of you?
to say, yes, that from people, when they hear our story, when they read our story, get to appreciate what they have. They might have taken it for granted, the Torah life, and they see the struggle we went through, and that we were out there, and there's nothing else in the world, and this is it. This Torah is true, and that we had to struggle, and they didn't. They appreciate much more, and also many times they're inspired to reach out to other Jews who are like we were, who are assimilated and don't know anything. So this is, from people really, really find that this is a very inspirational story for them.
Two great messages. Thank you. Any final word?
I just like to say, we live in a very tough world right now, full of challenges. Everybody has challenges. There's nobody who doesn't have challenges, and serious challenges. So much sorrow in our world. I just like to say, we found out in our life, Hashem turns everything upside down. I think we are so close right now to the Gula Shalema. I'm not going to make any predictions. That's not my job. But we should all know the Nevi'im Chazal promised us a world that's going to be beautiful, a return to Gan Eden, Beis HaMikdash, Mashiach ben David, peace, Achdus. We're going to see it. And we should know to hang on to that and to daven for it, because it's going to happen. My personal feeling is it's not so far off, but it's going to be a beautiful, perfect world where all the tears are wiped away, as the Navi says, and Be'ezus Hashem, we should see it soon in our days.
Amen, amen, amen. Thank you again to both of you for being here. Absolute pleasure to speak to you.
Our
Pleasure.
privilege.
And we look forward to the success of this book. Amen.
Amen. Be'ez
Amen.
Hashem.